Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our final webinar in the mentorship program for Black staff this year. We are so excited to have you join us today for an energizing and insightful session, as Adrienne mentioned, on interview preparation. I'm too excited. Featuring our amazing speakers from PNE, Erin Daly-Reed and Terilyn Hoe. So as we know from our previous webinars, it's going to be an inspiring and practical session that will help you shine with confidence in your next interview. We have a packed agenda, as you can see on the screen today. Here's a quick overview of what our next hour will look like. So after I finish my introduction, I will pass it to Renee Whitaker for the African Ancestral Acknowledgement. And following that, my colleague Sherman will introduce our amazing guest speakers. And then we'll turn the floor over to Erin and Terilyn to conduct this amazing presentation on interview preparation. And if time permits, we will have a Q&A session as well before we close the session today. So if you have any questions while the presentation goes on, please feel free to submit them in the chat. And then if we have time, we will take it out at the end. Okay, so let's get started. As I mentioned, we are thrilled to have you join us today for this exciting webinar, which is also our final one. And today's session is designed to support you with effectively preparing for interviews so you can build confidence and enhance your interviewing skills to effectively respond to behavioral and situational skills, as well as to avoid any common interview mistakes that you may be making right now. And this session also aims to equip you with tools and insights to effectively communicate your skills, experiences, and strengths in interviews and demonstrate alignment with the city's core competencies and values, and to help you position yourself as a strong candidate. As always, we hope today's session will leave you with the confidence and the skills to shine in the next job interview and help you land the job that you are aiming for. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Renee to lead the African Ancestral Acknowledgement for us. Renee, over to you.
Thank you very much. And so the City of Toronto acknowledges all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. I'd like to take a moment also to just have a quick brief reflection on the intersecting crises that continue to shape the lives of Black nations across the globe, crises rooted in coloniality and intensified by global warming. Colonialism was not just a historical event, it is an ongoing structure. Its legacy lives on the borders that divide communities, in the extractions of resources that enrich others, and in the systems that continue to marginalize Black voices. Wars across the African continent are not isolated conflicts. They're a result of imposed divisions, economic exploitation, and the deliberate destabilization of sovereign nations. And at the same time, global warming presents a new layer of injustice. Through Black nations contributing the least to carbon emissions, they suffer the most from its consequences. Hurricanes like Melissa, rising sea levels, droughts, and floods are not just environmental events. They are also the political emergency. They expose the deep inequities in how the world responds to crises and who is left to bear the burden. This reflection is to call awareness and to action. We must confront the systems that perpetuate harm and advocate for climate injustice that center the voices and needs of Black communities. We must challenge and ruminate of colonial powers and support movements for self-determination, equity, and healing. For Black nations deserve more than survival. They deserve justice, restoration, and the freedom to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you
I
so
guess,
much, Renee,
no, go
for
ahead, Charmaine.
sharing. Thanks, Delaney. Thank you so much, Renee, for sharing that. Maybe we can just take a moment for all those victims who were hit by Hurricane Melissa and keeping all those that were impacted in our thoughts. Thank you, everybody. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sharmin Ismail, and I am the program lead for TESS. So thank you, Renee, for leading us. Renee is also from TESS, so maybe we can see some emojis, some hearts in the chat for what a beautiful reflection from Renee. Okay, thank you. It's fantastic to see so many familiar faces here today, and I'm so excited to welcome back our amazing facilitators from P&E. Many of you may already know them from our very popular webinars, our networking webinar in July and our resume building webinar in October, both of which were a huge success. But for any of you that are new to our sessions, I will be formally introducing them. Today we have with us Terry Lynn Hallett, who is a multiracial 2S LGBTQ woman with a visible disability with vision loss, who uses a white cane and is a screen reader user. Terry Lynn works with people in equity as an accessibility workforce equity specialist with over 20 years of employment services experiences working within intersectional cross-disability community as a vocational professional and also a manager. Terry Lynn also has been a strong advocate for inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility throughout her career. Working at the city, Terry Lynn is fortunate to continue her work advocating for accessibility and equitable employment opportunities away from inadequate social assistance schemes and undervalued paid and unpaid work. A huge round of applause for her, please.
Morning, everybody.
Thank you. And then we have Erin Daly Reed, who comes highly recommended by our very own program mentees. Erin brings extensive experience in the private and public sectors, leading inclusive talent and development programs for the City of Toronto. She focuses on supporting Black professionals through strategic partnerships, anti-racism initiatives, and inclusive recruitment to foster growth and retention. You may have also seen Erin at our in-person networking session earlier this year. A huge round of applause for Erin as well. On behalf of the Mentorship Program for Black Staff Program Leads, I'd like to express our sincere appreciation to Erin and Bo Terrelin for leading our webinars this year. Your continued partnership, expertise, and commitment have made such a meaningful impact on this program. And with that said, I will pass it over to you for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Charmin, for that marvelous introduction. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. Can I get some thumbs up? Yes, okay, wonderful. So hello and welcome everyone. I hope everyone's morning is off to a great start. It's almost the afternoon. So today's session is all about interview preparation, the techniques and the tips to help you feel more confident and just ready for your next job interview. So I know for some of us, maybe we've mastered how to craft a great resume and we know how to screen through for those calls. But when it comes to interviews itself, that's where things can get a little bit tricky. So for many of us, talking about ourselves, especially in formal settings, it doesn't come naturally. Sure that we're all social beings and we know how to share ideas on like one-on-one, and we know how to speak up for ourselves when something's not right. Like if you get an extra charge on your phone bill, right? In these moments, we know how to find our voice. But translating that same confidence and clarity into interview settings, it can feel much harder. So today we're going to break down just the practical strategies just to help you overcome that challenge and approach interviews with confidence and purpose and ease. On to the next slide. So these are our agenda items. We're going to start off with steps that you can take to help you prepare for your interview, just the 5 key steps. We'll also touch on strategies for answering interview questions like the STAR method. And then we'll finally wrap up with just interview etiquette and the tips, things that you can do before, during, and after your interview, just to ensure that you're putting your best foot forward. So on to the next slide. The first topic is interview preparation, the 5 key steps. So for most of us, our journey starts off with a call or an email saying we'd like to invite you to an interview. And this part can be exciting or it can be nerve-wracking, but once you've settled your emotions, we do have a question for the audience, so please feel free to share it in the chat. What is one step that you take to prepare for an interview? Next slide, just for the yes. What is the one step you take to prepare for an interview? So you've got the invite. What's one thing that you do? Do you pray? Do you have a drink? Do you call your friend? Do you call your family? Yeah, review your cover letter. That's one response. Review the job posting or job again. Pray. Yes. Write out points for possible questions. I read the job description thoroughly. Call manager on the job call. Prepare for the interview. Review the job description, my resume. Summarize skills. Research the position or reports. I know BOH, what does that acronym stand for? Do some research on the organization. Yes, call a person who's in that position. And these are just responses that are being, oh yes, BOH health reports, committee reports. Yes, review internal information. Reply with a thank you. And that's a unique way to approach it as well. Yeah, so all of these are great ways to kind of approach the interview, great strategies to kind of prepare for the interview. So we have Terry Lynn is going to take us through our first step. Step 1 is Terry Lynn.
Okay, step 1, all of you had so many great responses there. We're going to go into more detail about all of those great suggestions. Half of you, some of you already know what to do. That's terrific. However, if you just at the beginning though, if you do require, accommodation support, uh, if you self-identified as a person with a disability, you definitely want to do this first step, which is, connect with the recruiter first, let them know about your disability-related accommodation request, make sure that you are stating this is a disability-related request in adherence to AODA or OHRC, or maybe you prefer to say that you have a legal, disability, so that it's clear to the recruiter that you fall underneath that the AODA and our city policies to provide accommodations in a time-sensitive manner. We don't need to know the diagnosis, just rather the recommendations of what you might need in the interview or during the assessment. So if that's extra time, if that's an accessible location, or if you feel like you need the questions in a little bit in advance or in a hard copy or thrown into the chat, these are the kinds of accommodations that some people do request. But this is also important language so that the recruiter also understands that when you say this is a disability related request because I have a permanent disability or a legal disability, then it indicates to the recruiters and to our recruitment team that we need to be taking in good faith your request for accommodations during that assessment phase. And we want to be able to respond as soon as possible. But it also kind of eradicates any misunderstandings because sometimes people will come in and ask for, through the accommodation inbox, or sometimes when they're requesting accommodations, out external, more frequently, obviously, external applicants, but might get that confused and think it's like hotel accommodations or stay accommodations. But it's also important for us to know that disability is in accordance to the Ontario Human Rights Code. So if you're not quite sure if you have a disability, you can take a peek at that with the Ontario Human Rights Code. That it'll give you some more information about what's covered under the code, what undue hardship is, as well as our city accommodation process. That will also give you some tips and some guidelines of how to kind of approach it. But having those conversations is upfront and quickly is really the best way to do that. We also, I always, talk a little bit about, sometimes in the beginning, any kind of misunderstandings as we're going through that application process, through the assessment or the interview or whatever's written on your resume. I know we talked about things to cover on your resume. Just, it's always important to be upfront as soon as possible, because all of these things can impact your application to the city, so, or to another position. So education, any misunderstandings around education, um, references, criminal check, all of those kinds of things, disability diagnosis, all of those things can impact your application to the position. I also like to encourage people, if you are wondering if you want to ask for disability accommodations because you're really not sure what to expect at any stage of the hiring or interview or assessment process, at any stage of that process, you might want to just ask, what's the next step that will be expected of me, so that you'll know how to better prepare. Sometimes if you're not sure if it's an assessment or what kinds of things might be happening in that in-person or virtual interview, it's hard to kind of request accommodations when you might need it. If you feel like it's a complicated accommodation request, ask to speak to them, virtually or over Teams, or give them a quick call so that you can, reduce any misunderstandings. And sometimes, email can get your request can get lost in translation if it's email, if it is a complicated accommodation request. And I think something else just to kind of remember is that we're all at a different learning. We can't know everything. I've been in the industry for over 30 years, and it's really difficult sometimes to know. So, if you are providing information, whether that be calling or email, that's really a great opportunity to make a great first impression as well. Expressing your confidence and your excitement for the role, and then showing that professionalism, because we know that the recruitment team are really wanting top talent and they want representative talent. So really just taking that opportunity to market yourself, but then also making those requests where you need to. And if you, need to kind of work out what script out what you might want to say. So if you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable, you're not sure how to kind of present it in a professional manner, you can try to script it out. I'm here. We have community organizations that can also help you kind of ask those, those accommodation questions, because there's, so many reasons why you might be looking for another job. So it generally not because you're stating that you want to, get away from your relationship with your managers or your team, or, pay or workload or inaccessibility. Sometimes these things come up, right? But you don't want to be saying things like, I'm leaving because my job wasn't accessible, or I didn't find a supportive team. Um, we're all trying to reframe how and why we're looking for work. So it's generally you're marketing your employability skill sets. Again, uh, you're looking for more responsibility. You're looking for more flexibility, if that is around a disability related accommodation, or you're looking for more responsibility. So there's all these ways of being able to reframe what your situation is and what's happening for you now. I'm going to turn it over to Erin so that we can move on to the next steps.
Thank you. So for the second step, in the case this information has not been shared in the invitation, you can always ask the recruiter for details about the interview, such as its length and the format. So it's important to note these details because for most city interviews, it's a panel style with 2 to 3 panelists, and it's usually between 45 minutes or 1 hour in length. So making note of these details just upfront helps you mentally prepare for engaging with multiple people and how to structure your responses. Like, how long should my response be for a 45-minute interview that might have 5 to 6 questions? But you can also reach out maybe to your program leads or us in the workforce equity team to create a similar environment during a mock interview, just to help you practice and build comfort in responding to questions in front of an audience that you might not be familiar with as well. The third step is to review both the job posting, as many of you mentioned, review the job posting as well as your resume, just to identify and make note of your strengths and your areas of improvement. So again, in City of Toronto interviews, the panel may not refer to your resume. So it's always helpful just to review the qualifications, just to help you start to prepare relevant stories about your past experiences, the key skills and the approaches that you might make if you were to apply for this role, that would make you the best fit for the role as well. And during the process, I always say the job posting is going to be your best friend. So if you're wondering, how do they score my responses? The foundation of the rubric or the evaluation is in the key qualifications, and that's just at the bottom of the job posting. The fourth step is to research. Do your homework, right? So research the organization, whether the division or the unit. You want to research their vision, their values, their culture, any recent projects. And if you're applying to the city, check the division's site through the intranet to find the division's strategic plan, just to understand their initiatives and their priorities. You can also check the staff directory to find out which section or the role, where will it be housed? And you can connect with current team members either through coffee chats and LinkedIn's, because these strategies kind of help you understand the working dynamic, right? Because the employer, for an interview, they're there to sell themselves, right? So they're not going to tell you whether or not, you have micromanagers on the team or anything like that. And you're going to gain this information through speaking with current team members. And you can also find some of these folks are on LinkedIn, and these strategies, they just help you learn about the team priorities. And the last step, practice, practice, practice. So practice your responses to common interview questions just to build confidence and improve your delivery. It's very important to practice. Just like for The Lion King, you see, if you ever watch that show, you see them, they put on a show and they do it perfectly. That's because they spent hours rehearsing. So the same goes for your interview. Like saying your answers out loud, it really makes a difference. It can help calm your nerves, and it makes it easier for you to communicate your ideas when the time comes. And again, mock interviews with friends, it's a great opportunity just to get honest feedback, because your friend will let you know, hey, you're too stiff, or why are you not smiling? Or you don't sound natural, you sound like a robot. They'll tell you to fix up. So that's why it's good to have, mock interviews. So these are just some things that you could, the things that they tell you, like the feedback that they provide, those are going to be the things that you remember during your interview. So on to our next section. So when it comes to interviews, most people worry about how to respond to questions. For many, it can be nerve-wracking, anxiety-inducing, and even trauma-inducing, because going through the process, we're put in a situation where now we have to think about work experiences where we might have experienced microaggressions and you felt like you were being exploited, or you're on a team that didn't value you or trust your skills. And now you're put in a situation where you have to frame these experiences and leave out the negative bits with a smile on your face. And I want to say to give yourself grace and time to process these emotions. The thing is, interviews, they don't have to feel like a test and they don't have to feel like a challenge. And I think one of the best pieces of advice that I ever received from a colleague that moved up the city, they moved or promoted very quickly, was just to treat the interview like a conversation. So it's not about proving yourself or listing your skills. It's also about finding out what the organization can offer to you. Because if you're going to spend a big part of your life working with these teams, it's worth to think beyond the paycheck. So ask yourself, what is this team's culture? Does their team culture, does it align with my values? Like, what are the mindsets that they might share? So this is the mindset that I bring to every interview. And yes, I still get nervous too, but I learn to think of those feelings as like positive energy that I can channel into sharing my story with enthusiasm. So that's just how I take my power back in the interview process. And I approach it like having a conversation. But that's just one strategy. So we do have a question for the audience. What helps you feel more confident in an interview? Just going into an interview, maybe you heard, like you listened to a TED Talk and there was one piece of advice that you'd like to share with everyone as well that could help them as well. Like what makes you feel more confident in an interview? Is it doing the Superman pose, in a virtual environment, or just standing there to center yourself? Is it meditation? Is it talking to yourself in the mirror? Yes, feeling prepared. Positive self-talk beforehand. Yes, being prepared. Knowing and understanding the job posting, the requirements, and meditating. The response, understanding my strengths and be prepared to talk to them. As you said, treating it as a conversation. Being calm and grounded. Well, these are all great strategies, definitely. Meditation. Are you preparing your your area? Are you making it free of like obstacles and noises? Listening to some music, like that's a great thing, right? Maybe there's like one particular song that you want to jam out to just to build that confidence. If we've already worked in the scenario they asked for, yes, be confident in yourself, right? There's a reason why you screened through, right? You met the technical requirements. Now it's only about presenting and articulating those thoughts. Praying, yes, being prepared, knowledge, knowing your strengths. Remind yourself that they also want us to succeed and find a good fit for their team. That's true, right? Panel members, we're only there usually when interviewing to help you. We're not trying to give you any trick questions or anything like that. Yes, acknowledging that you are the expert of your journey and experiences. Anticipate possible questions, understanding the job posting, preparing words of affirmation to help me stay calm. Yes, all of these are great strategies. But we also have strategies that you could possibly use to help you prepare as well. So on to the next slide. So when you're preparing for an interview, it can help to have a few key stories ready. So these can be used to answer a range of questions and help you speak with confidence. So the first story that you can kind of prepare could be about your background. You remember that question, tell us about yourself or that moment. So this is your chance just to highlight your skills, your education, and your relevant experience. You want to focus on how your background connects to the role and why you would be a strong fit for the role as well. The second story could show your conflict resolution or your problem-solving skills. So you want to think of a time that you handled a challenge or a disagreement and focus on what you did. How did you approach it? And what was the outcome of that situation? So this shows your ability to stay calm and take action when things get tough. And then the third story could be about your strengths and impact. So you want to share an example of how you added value to your team or your organization. And this helps you highlight what you bring to the table and also the results that you helped create. And then the last story can be about learning and growth. So just think of a time, maybe something didn't go as planned. What happened? What did you learn from it? And how would you handle it differently now? So this shows the panel at least, emotional intelligence. It shows awareness, resilience, and your ability to turn challenges into opportunities for growth. And I think it's important not to choose just like an essential skill when you are telling a story about how you improved, like not an example like multitasking. That's not a great story to kind of tell about learning and growth, but you want to share a challenge specifically that can help the panel see you beyond your qualifications. You know, it just shows like how you think, how you've handled situations, and how you'll perform in the role. So as you prepare, just take a few minutes to just, you know, jot down the key points for each story, you know, reviewing your resume, you know, reviewing those experiences. Even if the question isn't exactly how you envisioned it, you can always frame it using these key stories that you've kind of developed to kind of frame your responses and to tell your story with confidence as well. And moving to the next slide, I think this is the best technique to frame your responses, just so it's linear and coherent and your thoughts are not fragmented. And that's by using this final technique. It's just the STAR method. So the STAR method is a simple structured way just to answer those tricky situational and behavioral questions, right? You know, the ones that they say, oh, tell me about a time when you had an XYZ experience. So STAR, it does stand for situation, task, action, and result. Now we're just going to break it down. So S, situation, you want to start by setting the scene. So what was going on? Give the interviewer a bit of context, just enough so they understand the situation and why it mattered. And you want to keep it short and relevant. And then we'll move on to T, task. You want to talk about your task. What were you responsible for? What was the challenge that you were facing? Or what goals were you trying to achieve? So this is where you make it clear exactly what your role was. And now the action, that's the meaty section, A for action. This is the part where you get to explain exactly what you actually did. This is your chance to shine. You want to walk them through the steps that you took, the decisions that you made, and how you approach the situation. And you want to be specific here as well. That really demonstrates your impact. You're showing them the how. And then the results are, so finally, how did things turn out because of your actions? Like what was the outcome? What was the result? You want to try to share something that's measurable or even meaningful. You know, you want to share a win or an improvement or even a lesson that you learned. And of course, you want to frame it as a positive as well, right? You just want to show that your growth in the result. And the STAR method, I find it's a great way to just, you know, structure your responses because it helps you stay focused and it helps you tell your story in a clear and powerful way. So you're not just rambling or you're not like leaving out certain key details, right? It's like having a roadmap for a strong and confident response. Now, the next slide, it just shows us an example or shows you an example of, you know, what the STAR method could look like in action. And you can review that on your own time. But I found that when it comes to interview questions, I found, especially in one-on-one discussions with Black talent across the organization, that it's really important. Well, I think that helps people the most is the action piece. So when you're giving your responses, the action really shows what you did, right? It's important to describe your approach and the specific steps you took. So I always use this example. So customer service as an example. So if I were to ask any of you on the spot, how do you deliver customer service excellence as a cashier? If you were a cashier at Walmart, and a lot of people freeze or they say, oh, that's easy. But then when they have to think about it, right, it's just like, oh, like, you know, I know that I do a lot of these things instinctively or even unconsciously. We do it automatically without even thinking about it. And that's exactly why breaking it down or will make your answers like much stronger, right? So if we were to think about it, how do you deliver great customer service if you were a cashier at Walmart? Do you greet the customers with a smile? Do you make sure that your conveyor belt is clear? Is your tone relaxed and inviting? Do you follow company procedures like offering a donation option or asking about credit card sign up? Do you make sure that your aisle is free of obstacles and clear and safe? So all of these little details tell the story of how you provided excellent service, as simple as it seems. And the same applies to no matter what field you're in nursing, employment services, shelter, anything. When you're answering interview questions, you want to take a moment to add context to your approach and how your actions, you know, help delivered solutions. It really helps the interview see the value in you and understand your approach and the way that you do things as well. I think that's very important, and it could really help strengthen your responses. For our next topic, Terry Lynn is going to take us through what to do before, during, and after the interview.
Thank you, Erin. I've seen so many of people's responses from the first question echoed in your presentation in terms of how to approach the interview. So, before the interview, moving to the next slide here, before at this point, you've really already, let me just fix my at this point, you've already, conducted your research, you've reviewed the job posting, you've read the strategic plan, you may have spoken with a colleague, which is always helpful to get a little bit of insight about what's most important in that role. You've taken a look at your resume. And as Erin had just pointed out, you've practiced your star responses, probably orally. Maybe you've videotaped yourself in Teams, or done it with a friend, or you might have written it out. Sometimes I find writing it out in full and then having bullet points, like one word kind of bullet points under STAR, to help, kind of with the memory, and also help to, make it clear and concise. It's also important, as Erin said at the top, that some interviews at the city, your resume may not be considered. So you want to be able to try to capture as much as you can during those verbal responses. But for the initial interview assessment, so whether that be phone, in person, or virtual, you really want to make sure. I think many of you, this is going to be just a reminder, but you really do want to wear those interview clothes from top to head to toe. So, that helps you get your mind and your body prepared. I was really impressed by some of those answers in the beginning where you had mentioned being mindful and really trying to get calm the nerves down and the anxiety down, that being that mind and body preparedness, having professional attire from head to toe really helps with that as well. You also want to test the application platform. So, whether that be on your phone or on your laptop computer, you want to make sure you download that application. It's generally better than a browser. If you do need to use the accessibility features, try to do that research prior to and play with it for a little bit. So we've got lots of resources at the city. We've got EDN, the Employee Disability Network. We've got Workforce Equity. We have the Accessibility Unit. We have disability management, and you have our community as a whole. There's all kinds of organizations outside of the city that can also assist as well to test out how you're accessing what you look like, what the background, the whole thing. So definitely something that you want to take a look at. And then also at the end, you want to make sure you have thoughtful questions at the end. You want to ensure that you're letting the interviewer know that you understand what the role is about. This may also be a time where you want to ask disability related questions as well, so that you're also presenting solutions, but giving you some insights into what the role will be, what will be expected in the role. So moving to the next slide, wanted to ask each of you, because we said that we're going to end, at the end, there's always that space for you to ask questions. So what do you think is a good question to ask an employer during the interview? If you wanted to unmute, or if you wanted to just throw a question in the chat, what is a good question that you can ask at the end of the interview?
Mm.
Do we have any
Well,
takers?
for myself, at the end of the interview, I always ask the manager, what is their leadership style like? For myself, because I know that I cannot work with a micromanager, and this gives me great insights as to their leadership style, whether they're going to give me autonomy to do the work. And then we have other responses in the chat. Can you tell me some challenges you face in your respective division, and how do you overcome those challenges? What is the onboarding process like? What are areas for growth? how the organization supports Black and racialized staff in professional development endeavors. I asked the manager, what are possible challenges in this role? What are some tools or resources to help somebody prepare for this role? Based on how I answer the question, do you have any concerns about my capacity to fulfill the role? I'm telling them that up front, managing expectations. How the organization supports work-life balance, like how do you measure success in this role? What are the next steps in the interview process? What are some of the most important characteristics you're looking for in a candidate to satisfy this position? What is the chance for a new employee to get a mentor and to be able to grow in this role to higher management levels? What are the top 3 strategic objectives this role is expected to achieve, right? You want to ground those conversations like you are the leader going in. Staff development, employee growth, health and wellness. These are the responses.
These are all great responses. How would you define success in this role? What are the most immediate projects that need to be addressed by me? What are the biggest challenges? Some of you already said that. Um, how would you describe a typical weekday in this position? And what do you like about working here? What do you find challenging about working here, and what would you change? What are the current goals that the company is focused on, and how does this team focus on achieving those goals? What metrics or goals will my performance be measured against? So, what types of skills are the team looking for or missing to fill with a new hire? There's all the questions that you shared. Some of these questions, there's lots of other types of questions that you can ask in terms of questions you can ask at the end to demonstrate again, to reiterate that you have those skill sets to for the role. So moving to the next slide, just wanted to talk a little bit about phone etiquette. I know, again, some of this is going to be a reminder for some of you, but really you want to make sure you have a clear phone line, that you have a good cell reception, that there isn't a dead zone or a drop zone, so that you're not walking around, so you got a clear line all the time. You want to definitely make sure that you're preparing like it's an in-person interview. Again, we talked about dressing from head to toe. And you may want to be sitting at your computer so that you're able to take notes on the questions or notes on what is being discussed. You also want to make sure that you have that confident tone and smile, because even over a phone, you can tell when somebody's smiling, and smiling just gives you that approachability over the phone. And it also shows that you're engaged in the conversation. So also when you're on the phone, you may want to probe where there is a fit so that you can, again, demonstrate that intentional, proactive interest that you have, and that you're always, finding those ways to market your skill set. And you also want to make sure that, your environment is also quiet. So sometimes you may want to inform your family or your partner that you're going to be, busy at this time so that nobody's kind of jumping in during those times. And, where possible, you're not in your car where there's going to be a lot of distractions or walking outside. You want to really show that you're being intentional and you're committed to learning more about the role that you're applying for. And of course, as always, that you're showing some enthusiasm and some excitement for this opportunity and thanking them for their time. Moving to the in person interviews, you really also may want to obtain information about the location or the room, traveling to and from the location, timing during rush hour. We think we know where it is roughly, but we really don't want to be late. That first impression really is important. So always getting there, 10 or 15 minutes beforehand, or doing that practice kind of travel run. So just, so again, just timing yourself. And then something else that is always really important to remember, I always share, is that on your way to that interview, especially if it's in the morning, but anytime, all the people that you're taking the TTC with on the subway or on the bus, remember that any one of those people could be the person that's interviewing you or could be a colleague. So just, remembering, that just remembering that while you're traveling to and from, somebody bumps you or, has a coffee or, you don't want to, you just want to be polite all the way to and from that to and from. And especially if there's a receptionist or an administrative assistant that's there, any coworkers that are there, these are probably people that you may be working with. So it's always really important to remember that as well. During the in-person interview, you also want to really be conscious of nonverbal body language. So whether that be, if you have disability related difference or expression, or maybe there's some cultural differences. So for example, eye contact, if you're not able to or not comfortable with eye contact, sometimes just looking at the ear area, it gives the illusion of eye contact. So really paying attention to those nonverbal body languages and how to kind of overcome it, or identifying the elephant in the room. Someone like myself, I may not be able to give eye contact. So I'll say, I'm still paying attention. I may be looking up here, but I'm, giving you the best eye contact I can. If you're funny, make a joke. If you're not, just at least say something to identify why it might look a little different so people can really pay attention to what you're saying and how you're marketing yourself, as opposed to why you appear to be acting a little bit differently. Fidgeting, maybe you want to hold something, preferably not your resume because you might be rattling paper. So, find something that you can bring, or just placing your hands in your lap and just kind of holding your hands. That might help you to stop fidgeting where, the nerves kind of kick in. We already talked a little bit about dressing professionally and personal hygiene. Really important to remember not to use a lot of cologne and perfume. I know we want to, present our best selves, but sometimes our best selves without the perfume or cologne is really helpful if you're locked in a room. You don't want the scents to be overtaking, and you don't know if the other person has allergies. So most city spaces are scent free anyways. So just something to keep in mind with that. With regards to the next slide and virtual interviews, we know we want to test the audio and the video. We've been doing this a while now, so again, this is just going to be a reminder for some of you. If you are needing, the accessibility features, maybe something shifted and you've got to start using them, test them out. We're here if you need any assistance. You've got friends and family and community, but absolutely, you might want to, if you don't know how to drop things in the chat, if now you need to do that or navigating around, we're here to help. Prior to your interview, you also want to make sure that that camera is at eye level. Your name is going to come out, so you really want to get that shoulder up shot where possible, so you're not kind of looking down and they're kind of looking up at you. All it takes is really a shoebox, or a stack of, we don't have paper anymore, right? But just something to prop that laptop up so that your camera is at eye level. Um, and again, we've talked a lot about, avoiding a distracting background where you might get lost in the background. Um, and, also just moving to the next slide, I was skipping some notes there because we talked a little bit about that. But during the interview, we talked about coming 10 minutes early, taking some of those questions, making notes of some of the questions, making notes of what are the things that you think really resonated with them, because those are great things that you can also include in a thank you letter at the end. Um, when you're giving that eye contact, I'd forgotten to mention earlier that you want to try to make sure if it's an in-person that you're, motioning to every person who's in the panel as well. Um, and also, obviously, we know not to chew gum, bringing gum or mints or things like that in the interview. The other thing we want to also make sure that we're not doing, and it can happen, I've seen it happen in interviews, is that no matter how comfortable you're feeling in the interview, you don't want to criticize others or former employers or, the team that you worked with before, or it doesn't matter how long ago it is. Sometimes interview questions can bring up things that, emotions that you never thought you had, or you're kind of stumped because you don't know how to answer that question. So sometimes things might come out that would be surprising for you. You always want to make sure you have that professional filter on. So that's why if you're able to hold it in your head when you're answering those questions, think of S for the situation, T, action and result, and always remembering we start on a high, we end on a high. People remember the first and the last thing that you say. So just remembering those results, always remembering bringing it back to why you're the best fit for this kind of role. Um, so really wanting you to work your script. So as Aaron said, practice, 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 oral with a friend, writing it out. All of these things are going to help you with your nerves and the anxiety. And when you go blank, we've all had it happen to us. We go blank. We're just that practice. The information will just come, and you'll be. Sometimes it'll save you. So just really practicing that STAR method will help you. After the interview, we really again want to send that thank you letter. It was a great opportunity to be called. We're so excited that out of hundreds or thousands or several people, you were selected at the end of the day. And the interviewers are also taking their time to interview successful candidates, but you want to make sure that you get that thank you letter in within 24 hours. You never know. Even if it comes down to you weren't the first initial person who was selected and then the other candidate was, your thank you letter could make the difference. If that person falls through for whatever reason, they got offered another job at the same time, or the salary wasn't quite what they expected, or the role, or whatever they were negotiating, or something happened, right? Things happen. Your thank you letter might boost you up against, up in that the next to be considered, right? If it was a panel, you definitely want to try to get all of their names so that you can send that thank you letter or CC it to all the panelists, or recommend the contact the recruiter that could you please ensure that you send it to, and if you list all of the names. Um, but your thank you letter really should include, thanking them for their time, high level overview. You want to really, like I said, in your notes where you really felt like that connection and that energy, remind them and say, when in the interview when we were talking about this, I'm bringing this to the team, let them, bring back that feeling of the connection that you shared during the interview. Obviously you're going to share your excitement for the role. um, and I still encourage, the city may or may not be able to take anything in that thank you letter to assess more, because they may only be assessing just what you share. Every interview is different, but if you miss something, include it in the thank you letter. It's a great opportunity again to market your skill sets, that in here you had asked this question, and upon reflection, share a little bit about why, again, you're the best person for the role. So, just moving to the next section, or to the next slide, we really just wanted to, I don't know, we might have a couple of minutes to inquire about how confident you might be feeling with the information that we've shared today, or if you had any particular questions about the interview process, how to prepare. Really hoping that some of these tips, especially that STAR method and having that tell me about yourself, those areas that Aaron introduced, the tell me about yourself, listing one's strength, listing a conflict. Remember, a conflict with maybe a staff member, with a manager, and with a customer. You know, uh, Really looking at those and writing them out in that STAR method are tips that are concrete tips, along with your mindfulness that some of you had mentioned, can really go a long way to preparing. But did anybody have any questions? Or Aaron, did you have any other comments?
Other comments, I do see some questions. Do we have an example of a thank you letter? We do. We can share that with the program leads and they can decide whether they'd like to share it. You mentioned another question. You mentioned keep disability out of the interview conversation. Please clarify.
So generally in the interview, you can, it depends on where we're going with it. If you're, I wouldn't say keep it out of the interview conversation. You can put it in. So it depends on what we're trying to do. So if if you have a question and you want to leave it to the end about how you might be accommodated, then you might want to leave that in the end, or you can work it into a strength. So for example, if there's a way that you function that might be a little bit differently, you can form that into one of your strengths and say that in this is how I've done my role in the past because you're using the STAR method. I was in this, I and the tasks that I was responsible for, the actions that I took, but then I also used whatever assistive devices or whatever flexibility you're incorporating it into that action. And then the result is as a result, you know, a, B, C, and D. So you can incorporate your if there's a difference or if there's a soft accommodation or a technical accommodation, you can kind of work that into, and I'm always happy to meet with you separately to see how it kind of comes off and if it comes off in a professional manner. So for me, for example, if I'm talking about using JAWS, a screen reader software or Fusion, I would talk about it in with regards to the other softwares that I use. So I use Word, I use Excel, I use PowerPoint, and I also use a screen reader to access all of these things, and that gives me access to the programming. And then I immediately go into the actions that I've taken. But if you want a little more, I'm not sure if that's answering the question, but I
No.
hope that it is.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
The only in disability related, really, it's really the resume that you don't want to incorporate that. But for sure, you can certainly ask questions at the end as well. And I would also ensure that you have some solutions as well as how it may have benefited the team or the project that you were working on. Really, again, we're the city and we're public servants, so we want to be representative at all levels of the organization. It's our responsibility, and we're under legislation to do so. So you can certainly, you know, work that into your responses.
We do have a question. Can I respond to this question or do you want to wrap
Go ahead.
up? Because I know the time.
I think it's
Yeah,
probably a good
Harvey?
idea to respond to this question
Yes,
and then we
okay.
can probably wrap up.
Yeah, so can you talk more? The question is, can you talk more about the marking rubric system the city uses for marking interviews? Is it only the list of points that you need to be mentioned that earns you a mark? Are all other areas of qualifications mentioned in the interview not counted? So for the rubric, there's no singular rubric that is used across the enterprise. It will vary depending on the role, but from what I've seen, the qualifications are, listed within the rubric. So you want to ensure that you're touching on aspects of that. And I would say, if anything, if you haven't looked at the competency model that the city has on the intranet, refer to that because it shows you like the foundational competencies that are required for specific roles and various levels as well. And you want to ensure that you're integrating those pieces, whether it's for, level from a level 3 to 4. You just want to take a look at those models to align your experiences with the qualifications, and that will kind of, allow you to kind of respond with a strong response. But yes,
Excellent
the rubric is a reflection of the job description and the key qualification skills and must also, the skills you must also have, I'm assuming. Can you send the link? Yes, I will. I'll put that in the chat.
I'm sorry, but I think we are out of time. We're actually over time. Thank you so much. I'll hand it over to my fine associates to end the session.
Awesome. A big thank you to everyone who participated, and another round of applause for our amazing speakers today. I hope this session has helped you feel more prepared and confident, giving you the skills and strategies to shine as a strong candidate in any interview. This session marks the close of our professional development webinar series for the program, and what a journey it has been. We hope you've gained valuable insights, fresh perspectives, and practical tools to support your professional growth and journey. Most of all, we hope these sessions have helped you feel more confident and empowered as you continue building your path towards professional growth. A quick reminder that our final mentors only drop-in session will take place on Monday, November 10th from 11 to 12 p.m. And that's hosted by our amazing colleague, Inti. We encourage all mentors to join for this opportunity to connect, share experiences, and continue building our mentorship community. And looking ahead, we will be hosting our closing ceremony on November 27th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. During this session, we will hear remarks from senior leaders, success stories from mentees and mentors in the program, and celebrate the amazing achievements of our program this year. So get ready for a morning full of inspiration, celebration, and connection. Also, if your experience as a mentee has been meaningful, helping you grow, connect, and reach your goals, we'd love to hear your story in the closing celebration. And you can speak live at the ceremony or submit a short written testimonial by November 19th. Your stories will inspire others and celebrate the impact of mentorship across our divisions. So please send your submissions to gmo-tss@toronto.ca and CC TESS if you are with TESS, or TPH if you are with TPH. It will be a very exciting event, so please stay tuned for more details, and we'll also have some great swag prizes as well. And as you begin wrapping up your final mentorship relationships, we encourage all mentors and mentees to continue to make the time to connect this month. It's a wonderful time to reflect on your growth, share feedback, and celebrate the progress you've made together. Also, if you have any issues or concerns with the mentorship program or want to connect directly about any particular request related to your professional development as a participant, here are our amazing program leads. So please feel free to reach out and so that we can support you with your questions. We love your feedback, and we'd love to also hear your ideas for future. We're always happy to connect and support you. And just a quick reminder, Mentor City Access will end at the end of November, so please be sure to download any resources you'd like to keep before then. Our intranet spot page will still be there for you as an ongoing support. And finally, it is 12:05, so thank you all again for being here today, and we wish you a wonderful and dry afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.